Chapter 1 of The Automobile Girls at Newport. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Daryl War. The Automobile Girls at Newport by Laura Crane. Chapter 1. Barbara to the Rescue. Pink hair ribbons! Barbara Thurston's brown, bright face seemed to twinkle all over, as she clanked a yellow coin on the marble top of the little sewing table. "Silk stockings!" chorused Mollie Thurston gleefully. "Wasn't it the luckiest thing that the hotel people wanted so many berries this year?" And she, too, sent a gold piece spinning over the smooth surface. "But perhaps we won't be invited after all," she sighed. "Nonsense!" rejoined Barbara energetically. "When Grace Carter says she'll fix a thing, you can wager she will. She's known Ruth Stuart for 3 summers now, and she's told us we'd be invited to Ruth's party this year. I can read the invitations already. The only thing worrying me was what we'd wear. Now the strawberry crop has turned out so well, and Mother's a brick, and will let us use our money as we wish. I think we're fixed. Then, who knows?" "I am sure Ruth Stuart's lots of fun when you get to know her," interrupted Mollie eagerly. "If Cousin Gladys wasn't boarding at the hotel with her, we'd have met her long before. Isn't Gladys a stuck-up goose? Never mind. We'll have the laugh on her when she sees us at the party. Let's be delighted to meet her. I should love to watch her when she is fussed." "After all," mused Barbara thoughtfully, "her father was in partnership with Papa. It's mighty funny that Uncle got all the money. I wonder—" She stopped playing with her gold piece and gazed thoughtfully out of the sitting-room window at the hot, empty, yellow road that ran so near the cottage. Barbara Thurston was 16. Mollie was just 2 years younger, and nearly all their lives had been spent in that little cottage. John Thurston, the girl's father, had died suddenly when Mollie was only 3 years old. He had been at that time in the wholesale clothing business with his wife's mother, Ralph LeBaron, and was supposed to be a rich man. But when his affairs were settled up, his brother-in-law, the executor, announced that a very small interest in the business remained to Mrs. Thurston. He hinted darkly at stock speculation on her husband's part, and poor Mrs. Thurston, overcome by grief, had not wanted to question deeply. She herself happened to own the little cottage in Kingsbridge, in which she and her brother had lived as children. Acting on his advice, she settled there with her 2 little girls, and had remained ever since, subsisting on the small income her brother regularly transmitted to her from her dead husband's tiny business interest. LeBaron and his wife, with their daughter, Gladys, usually spent the summer in Kingsbridge at the one summer hotel in the place, but intercourse between the 2 families had come to be little sought on either side. Kingsbridge was a quiet little village in New Jersey, and except for the summer visitors, there was little gaiety. Gladys LeBaron especially had shown herself icily oblivious of the existence of her younger cousins, Barbara and Mollie. These 2 were delightful examples of self-reliant young America. Barbara, the elder, looked a regular nut-brown maid with chestnut hair that would never stay put, and usually a mischievous twinkle in the brown eyes beneath the straying locks. But there was plenty of genuinely forceful energy stored away in her slim, well-knit young body, and her firm chin and broad forehead told both of determination and intelligence. Her sister, Mollie, was fair, with lovely curling blonde hair and a quaint drollery of speech that won her many friends. Both sisters had grown up quietly, helping their mother about the house, as they could afford no servant, going to the village school, and, when they wanted anything beyond the plainest necessities of life, earning it. This summer both had set their hearts on really truly party clothes, not hand-me-downs. Their friend Grace Carter, daughter of Squire Carter, the village dignitary, had promised them invitations to the event of the season, the party to be given by her friend Ruth Stuart, a rich Western girl who quite recently had come to spend her summer at Kingsbridge. And didn't Ruth Stuart live at the same hotel with Gladys LeBaron, the snobbish cousin? To meet the enemy on her own ground, and to have the fun of a party besides, was certainly worth picking strawberries for, thought Barbara and Mollie. So they scoured the country round for the sweet wild ones the hotel visitors liked best. Now each of the girls was fingering gleefully her $20 gold piece that meant many days' work in the past, but pretty dresses in the future. The prospect was too alluring for Barbara to spend much time in wondering about the real why of their fallen fortunes, though the question had come to her before and would again. Now she was ready to join Mollie in eager planning as to just what they'd get. "Go get a pencil and paper, Mollykins, and we'll set it all down," she laughed. Mollie went into the further room, and Barbara waited, eyes absent-mindedly fixed on the yellow stretch of road. Suddenly she became conscious of a curious pounding. There was a queer, wild rhythm to it, and it seemed to be coming nearer and nearer. Barbara put her head out of the open window. She could see nothing but a cloud of dust far down the road, yet the pounding sounded louder every moment. Then she knew. The noise came from the furious feet of runaway horses, and they were coming past the house with their helpless, unknown victims. What could Barbara do? Her mother was asleep upstairs, and there was no man about the place. There was no other house near. Besides, the slightest delay might prove fatal. All this seemed to flash through Barbara's brain in a second. She knew she must act, swiftly and easily, as a boy. She vaulted the open window, pausing only to snatch a closed umbrella that leaned against the sill. How glad she was she had forgotten to put it away in the closet when she came in from the shower yesterday. In an instant the girl sped through the gate and out into the road, opening her umbrella as she ran. There she paused, squarely in front of the approaching dust cloud, very near now. She could hear the click of the stones, cast aside by the flying feet of the horses, and she caught a glimpse of two black heads, wild-eyed and foam-flecked, through the whirling dust. Barbara strained her eyes to locate hanging bridles, but meantime, swiftly and mechanically, she was opening and shutting the big black umbrella. "If they'll only stop," she murmured. And they did. Fear-crazed already, their legs trembling after a terrific run, the horses dared not seek encounter with that horrible bat-like creature that seemed to await them. Scarcely 5 feet away, their wild pace broke. They hesitated, and Barbara flung herself forward and seized the dangling bridles. But for a moment she pulled on them with wrists of steel, but it was not necessary. The horses drooped their weary heads and gladly stood still. Then, and only then, Barbara glanced at the carriage and its occupants. It was an open 4-seated carriage, and in it were Ruth Stuart, Grace Carter, Gladys LeBaron, and a strange young man somewhat older than the rest of the party. The girls were leaning back with closed eyes and white faces. The young man was staring straight ahead, with a blank expression, fear depicted on every feature. Barbara dared not leave the horses even now. "Mollie! Mollie!" she called. Mollie was already out of the house, from the window, terror-stricken. She had seen it all. "Get the girls out," Barbara directed. "I can't leave these brutes, though I guess they're all right now." In the meantime, Grace and Gladys had opened their eyes. Mollie now stood at the carriage step, her hand outstretched. As they recognized their rescuers, Grace's pale face lit up. Even Gladys, for once, tried to summon a gracious and grateful smile. "We're all right, Mollie," spoke up Grace, "but I think Ruth has fainted. I'll help you get her into the house." Suddenly the young man started up. "I beg your pardon," he remarked in a smooth, pleasantly modulated voice, "but you really must let me help. I have been utterly helpless so far," and his glance wandered admiringly and a trifle shamefacedly toward Barbara. In an instant he had sprung over the wheel and gently half-lifted, half-dragged Ruth Stuart off the seat. As her feet touched the ground, she too opened her eyes, only to close them again with a shivering sigh. Grace was at her side in a moment. "Try to walk to the house, dear," Grace urged. "It's only a few steps." Mollie took the place of the young man, and between the two girls Ruth stumbled to the gate. The young man stepped up to Barbara. "Can I help you?" he ventured, looking at the now quieted horses. But a cold voice sounded from the carriage where Gladys still sat. "I think you might think a little about me, Harry," she exclaimed. The young fellow bit his lip and hesitated. "Please," broke in Barbara, "please take her to the house. I can't get these horses and this carriage through the gate. It isn't big enough. But I'll hitch them to the fence and stay with them for a few minutes. You must need rest, all of you." Harry Townsend bit his lip as he caught the sarcastic inflection in Barbara's last sentence, but did as he was directed and walked slowly toward the house with Gladys. Left to herself, Barbara led the horses, still attached to the carriage, toward the fence, and hitched them by the reins in a clever way all country girls know. "Good boys, poor boys," she murmured, petting them, for they were still shivering pitifully with fright. For several minutes she stood talking to them. Then Mollie's anxious face appeared at the door, and in a moment she stood beside her sister. "What shall we do?" she asked. "Miss Stuart is feeling very ill, and wants to go home at once. She and all the others refuse to step foot into that carriage again, and I can't blame them. But you know, it's 2 miles to the hotel, if it's a step, and we haven't a telephone. Grace says Ruth's father would send the automobile." Mollie pronounced the word with reverent care. "But what's the quickest way of getting the message to them? Mother suggests running over to Jim Trumbull's and seeing if he'll hitch up and drive to the hotel. But it's half a mile to his place, and he's very likely to be away anyhow. What do you—" Barbara interrupted her decisively. "I'll just drive those horses back to the hotel myself, Mollie Thurston," she said calmly. "Barbara, you can't. It's risking your life." "Nonsense! There isn't an ounce of spirit left in the poor, frightened things. I guess I haven't broken Jim Trumbull's colts for him without knowing how to handle horses. You go tell Miss Stuart that her automobile will be here in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. And see, Mollie," the twinkle shone in Barbara's eyes, "of course they'll give me a ride back in the auto." Laughing at Mollie's protests, the plucky girl untied the horses and turned them carefully. "Stand at their heads just a minute," she cheerfully directed. Then Barbara gathered up the reins and climbed up to the high seat. "Drop anchor, Mollie," she called, and trotted slowly down the road behind the quieted blacks. End of chapter 1.